All right, we're jumping right in. Screw the turd sandwiches. Don't actually like screw. What I mean is like forget the turd sandwiches. I don't mean like actually,
Strong
you know.
start.
Yeah, yeah. I don't mean that. But no time for that. We're
Yeah.
diving right into the episode.
He's Brandon and I'm To, and
Yes.
so
And this is podcast.
yeah, we don't even have the fifth manga milestone edited and out yet.
It will be before
Ooh,
by the you will have heard it, or it's at least out before this one is out.
yeah. But yeah, this is milestone 6, everybody. Woo woo. 30
Yes.
chapters. 30 chapters. That's 600 total chapters of manga.
What a
Right?
madman.
Yes. Yeah, 30 chapters each.
Yeah.
That's six. Ugh. Um, no. I'm doing this to myself. All right. For anyone who wants to know what I'm talking about, so my name's To. In case you don't know me, hi To. This
My
should be.
dog is saying hi to you.
Yeah. I imagine that's the whole support group. Uh,
Yeah.
so I've decided. I took it upon myself a few months ago. I'm gonna read 20 different Shonen Jump manga all the way through. There have been ups and downs. I'm reading them in cycles of 5 chapters at a time. Uh,
Yum.
um, that was the popcorn chicken. I've been having popcorn chicken and water. I've been drinking more water today because I got a headache.
Mm, mm.
So I'm hoping that the water helps calm it down. I also took 3 little capsules of, not capsules, tabs of ibuprofen.
I gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway, that was less than 20 minutes ago, so they haven't kicked in yet. So yeah, I'm reading through 20 series. I'm not going to list them all right now. You're going to hear what they are as I go. Because what we've been doing is I've been reading my notes that I've been taking every 5 chapters for each series, and giving just my general opinions. Um, if you want to read along, go ahead, pick the ones that interest you. I'm only reading all of these because there's something wrong with me. And if you start reading ones that you don't like, drop them. Don't do what I'm doing. Uh,
Yes.
Also, don't read Saint Seiya.
Yes. Don't if you want to read the first chapter, read the first chapter. That's it.
Yep.
Nothing more.
Yeah. Read the first chapter to see if it's something that you're like. I guess read it if you're interested. Like, I'd really be interested to hear the opinions of someone who is reading Saint Seiya alongside
And
me
likes
and
it.
enjoys it. Like,
Yeah.
I want to know what they see in it. Because, like, I'm all for the, sometimes you just got to turn your brain off and enjoy things, right? Like, I'm all
Right. Right.
for enjoying things that other people are super critical of. Like, I recognize they're not very good movies, but I do like Zack Snyder's, like, Justice League movies, right? His Man of Steel and
Yeah. Yeah.
all those. Like I can appreciate them even though I know they're not good. But, like, at the same time, reading Saint Seiya, it's like, what the heck, people?
Yeah.
Who's enjoying that? So yeah, if there's anyone out there enjoying Saint Seiya, I'd love to hear opinions. Um, I mean, it is a classic for a reason, I guess. So anyway, um, yeah, we're just, but like, I'm not allowed to stop reading any of these until they're finished because, as previously stated, there is something wrong with me.
Yes. And
So
keep in
yeah,
mind, no one is forcing Tio to do this. He's forcing
no, like
himself.
this is
This is
100% my own perdition.
this is his whipping himself. This is him punishing himself.
I'm doing my 1,000 hours. I'm analyzing media and seeing what works and what doesn't in certain things. This is meant to be a learning experience for me, regardless of the quality of what I'm reading.
Yes.
So, without further ado, I'm going to pull up my notes for sixth milestone. Hooty hoo. I finished this. Apparently, I finished this note on October 7th, 2024 at 5:43 p.m.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. Anyway, so first we're starting with Dragon Ball chapters 26 through 30. With Goku and Krillin's training finally underway, the series has introduced a new goal for the heroes to strive toward: entry into the Tenkaichi Budokai tournament. Krillin makes a fun and enjoyable foil for Goku, being clever and worldly where Goku is gullible and innocent. The introduction of Lunch as the new female presence in the series also deepens the dynamic in interesting ways. While Bulma was an intelligent, motivated, and occasionally hostile presence in the first adventure, Lunch is meek, friendly, and easygoing, with the added threat that any given moment could lead to her mental switch being flipped, sending her into a violent rampage. With Roshi now being a consistent presence in the series and the Tenkaichi Budokai as a goal guiding Goku and Krillin in their training, the series has found a fresh context for its old framework of a loose objective that is reached through comedically episodic adventures.
Nice.
Yeah,
I had a.
Oh yeah,
You
go
had
ahead.
mentioned Lunch. Sorry, I had a bit of a crush on Lunch when I was a kid.
Dude, I love Lunch.
Yeah.
And Lunch is also a fun character too.
Yeah.
I get it because I'm fat and hairy. I'm a fat, hairy neckbeard. I like Lunch in both ways. I like food Lunch, and I like Lunch, the Dragon Ball character. Toriyama, God bless your departed soul. Why did you forget about Lunch? Anyway, hopefully whoever takes over Dragon Ball for the future, I hope you remember Lunch.
Yeah.
In every sense, both the character and remember to eat lunch. Stay healthy. Please don't die.
A key thing for those mangakas out there.
Yeah, Togashi is finally just now releasing some more Hunter x Hunter chapters semi-regularly. And nice. My coworker / cousin is very excited about that because he loves Hunter x Hunter, as do I. Yeah. Anyway, more on that in a few minutes, actually. But yeah, so like Dragon Ball is really kind of establishing a pattern as far as like its arc structure goes, which I know is going to change further down the road as it becomes more action oriented. But to start with, it really seems to be that like it works inside this framework of there's a loose goal that we know that we need to make it to by the end, and everything between the statement of that goal and achieving it can just kind of be fun little one-off adventures. Like all of Goku and Krillin's training leading up to their entry into the tournament is very like, here's how you're training for this chapter. Here's what you guys are doing this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So like the skipping during milk deliveries, the looking for the rock with turtle written on it, that sort of thing. The tilling the field with their bare hands. Like all these different training methods, these strength training methods that Roshi taught them. This is also where weighted clothing kind of starts coming in for the first time, because Roshi introduces the weighted turtle shells that Goku and Krillin wear on their backs to train.
Oh yeah.
Which, you know, the fruits are seen, I think, in the next crop of chapters, if I'm not mistaken. No, like it's seen. Hang on, I'm remembering now. I feel like it's no. Never mind. No, it's the next. Sorry, I've been reading enough to kind of bank some milestones, like not fully, but as far as like the early stuff goes. So for listeners, if I get a little confused about my place in some spots, I apologize. It's though right now it is still pretty easy for me to like keep my head straight about which milestones I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm like, milestone 7's not complete yet. I actually just finished reading the Yu Yu Hakusho chapters for milestone 7 today. So, and that's super early on in my cycle. Yu Yu Hakusho is only the 3rd title in my cycle. I was putting off finishing the Saint Seiya chapters because I didn't want to keep reading it. So, that does kind of make this next set of notes a little awkward. So, listeners, I'm about to be uncharacteristically complimentary of Saint Seiya. Know that this will not last.
Yeah, the next milestone it'll shift.
Yeah. All right. Saint Seiya chapters 26 to 30. I can't believe it. I won't believe it. However minor it is, there was some actual improvement in this stretch of chapters. As if sensing my inability to follow along, chapter 26 opened with a decently succinct recap of the first 25 chapters, introduced a central villain, and actually gave the story a direction to follow. Now, okay, now that is something that is maintained. There's actually a direction for the story. So, like, I'll keep that one. Anyway, at least one chapter had no fights in it, giving the series the opportunity to use its ludicrous page count to let characters and the reader breathe for a minute. Princess Sienna, the incarnation of Athena, has been mortally wounded and given a time limit on her life, introducing stakes external to the fights themselves that the heroes now have to worry about. All of these little elements have snowballed into something resembling quality storytelling, and I've found that I now have a reason to be invested in Saint Seiya's narrative and characters. We'll see if this holds true for the rest of the series. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. I've read up to chapter 35. It absolutely does not. And you'll understand why once we read off Milestone 7 next time, but good God.
Yeah. So Tio saw the slightest glimmer of hope, and then that was snuffed out.
Yeah. Oh, one chapter in particular. Oh, Shiryu. Oh, Shiryu. I can't talk about it right now. I can't talk about those chapters right now. So yeah, 26 to 30, mild improvements. It actually looked like it was starting to go some interesting places. I will say the series has a really bad habit of female characters just kind of popping up to confess their love for the main male characters, and then like just kind of falling to the wayside. It's like even if the female characters are warriors, they immediately get their ass cheeks beat and like are sidelined. They're conscious just long enough to tell the men how much they love them, and then they pass out.
That's perfect.
So that's a little bit of a problem. I thought Toriko was having some problems with female characters, considering it took nearly 30 chapters for a named female character to appear. But no, Saint Seiya's got it beat. Yeah, those are my thoughts for that stretch of chapters. I feel like I would have had more positivity for it if we had recorded this before I started reading Milestone 7.
Yeah, before 7, yeah.
Yeah. But no, I took a solid week off. I had half a chapter left in that milestone for Saint Seiya, and I took a solid week off because I didn't want to keep reading. That's how much that series is annoying me at this point. But I'm so close to the halfway point though. For Saint Seiya, 60 chapters. That's about the halfway point. No, 55 actually.
Yeah.
About 55, 56 chapters. That's going to be the halfway point. 56. It is exactly 56 chapters. Will be halfway through Saint Seiya. No, damn it!
You said it was 111 chapters, so if you hit 55 or 56.
Halfway through chapter 56 will be the halfway point. If chapter 56 has an even number of pages, then I'll be able to pinpoint.
When you're reading it, please do not have a focus on that. If you're reading it, it's like I have to know the exact halfway point, because if there's an odd number of pages in that chapter, it is going to throw your brain for a loop.
Well, then it's just going to be the center page.
That's true. Yeah.
It's not going to be that damaging for me.
I don't know. Saint Seiya has done a lot to you so far. So
it has. No,
and you just keep coming back
I was
to it.
gonna say I've done it all to myself. I'm the one who said I can't drop Saint Seiya. I can't like I already dropped JoJo due to extenuating circumstances, so like I can't drop Saint Seiya at this point. I have to.
Saint Seiya won't change, Tio. You're a better man than Saint Seiya. You
It's not
deserve
about.
better than Saint Seiya.
It's not about getting it to change. It's about beating it. At this point, I have to beat Saint Seiya.
But it's beat you so much. Are you willing to stick it out just to have a possible reversal?
It will only beat me if I stop. Saint Seiya only wins if I stop. All right.
This is a very, very complicated marriage of Tio and Saint Seiya right now.
Well, hey, I'm in a 20 manga polycule then. So apparently, if this is a marriage analogy. All right, next one. Something that makes me feel happy. Yu Yu Hakusho, chapters 26 to 30. The series is engaged in its first properly long arc, though these chapters do start ramping it up towards a climax. The relationship and sense of brotherhood seems to be deepening between Yusuke and Kuwabara in these chapters, with the two of them showing a begrudged masculine version of concern for each other's well-being in each of the steps of Master Genkai's grueling tests. Speaking of which, these tests feel eerily familiar in overall structure and theme. It's easy to see that Togashi recycled a good number of his ideas from this series when working on early chapters of Hunter x Hunter, though that series fleshes the concepts out a bit more depth. So yeah, the tests that Yusuke and Kuwabara go through to learn Reiki from Master Genkai. I know there's a lot of Japanese words and names there, but those tests feel really similar to the Hunter exam from Hunter x Hunter.
Oh,
It does feel like Togashi kind of took that stage of Yu Yu Hakusho and just expanded it out to by 10 times over for Hunter x Hunter. Because Hunter x Hunter, I'm 30 chapters into that as well, and they're still in the Hunter exam.
dang.
The main characters still don't even have their Hunter's licenses. Which I expected it to be a long stretch because I've seen the 2011 anime, and not including the 2 filler recap episodes, that was a 24 episode arc.
Yeah.
But but Yu Yu Hakusho definitely ramping up. It's definitely started positioning itself in a place to be one of the major influential shonen action series of the 90s.
Nice.
It's really getting to a point because Master Genkai is clearly the Roshi equivalent in Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yeah.
But she, as a character, is just taken a lot more seriously because it's clear that Toriyama does not take Roshi seriously at all, which is fine because that's each suits the tone of each series better. Dragon Ball, though they both have a sense of humor, Dragon Ball leans on its comedy harder than Yu Yu Hakusho does.
Right.
Whereas Yu Yu Hakusho uses comedy to break some moments of tension, but for the most part is trying to approach its story with some measure of sincerity. Which seems to really be Togashi's bread and butter. He really likes his straightforward and sincere characters surviving in these hyper not straightforward worlds.
Yeah.
Because Yusuke is very much a straightforward and sincere character, just as much as Gon is in Hunter x Hunter. They're just applied in really different ways. Whereas Yusuke is more aggressive and assertive and a punk, Gon is more of an innocent kid who's just kind of making his way in the world. So it's interesting to see the way that Togashi applies character traits in extremely different ways to his protagonists. But there'll be more on that as I get into the Hunter x Hunter portion of the notes. Next up is One Piece, chapters 26 through 30. My One Piece notes tend to be shorter than everything else typically because I have a great deal of foreknowledge on One Piece because I've been watching the anime for over a decade now.
Yeah.
So this one's going to be a little bit shorter. This stretch of chapters makes a fantastic first showing of Usopp's true character before he officially joins the Straw Hat crew. His desperation to save his village, a village that has shunned and scorned him for his foolishness, is a testament to his value and the strength of his spirit. He stands up against enemies when it really matters, remaining fully conscious while doing so, and he doesn't even have a fancy one-hit kill move to fall back on. I wonder who I was thinking of when I wrote that. "30 chapters in, Usopp has shown more strength of character in fewer chapters, I think. Or no, about as many chapters as Zenitsu has had in Demon Slayer."
Yeah.
Longtime listeners are going to think I'm obsessed. Comparing Usopp and Zenitsu is something that I do a lot, but I'm going to be honest. It's because there really is no comparison. It's Usopp is a stronger, better character with more to him. Clay keeps insisting that I just got to keep pushing through it when it comes to Zenitsu. And I'm really hoping because Clay is past Enies Lobby on One Piece. Clay is like in the Paramount War saga, and he says he is still not fully sold on Usopp. And I'm like, you're just doing that because I don't like Zenitsu. You're just saying that because I don't like
subconscious
Zenitsu.
thing, yeah.
Because Zenitsu has never shown anything even remotely as strong as Usopp has from a character perspective.
Look, maybe Zenitsu changes halfway through Demon Slayer, but I read the first 100 chapters and he is
halfway
exactly
through Demon Slayer, Brandon.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying like the last half is what I mean.
Oh yeah.
The last half, maybe there's some crazy change that happens to him where he's at least tolerable.
Yeah. Because I think Demon Slayer is only 202 chapters.
Yeah, it's only a little over 200, but yeah, reading that first 100, whatever you see Zenitsu as now, it doesn't really change.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I think where you got to in the manga is as far as I got in the anime.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, I'm well aware that Zenitsu's not going to get better anytime soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, Usopp is better than Zenitsu. Eat my wee wee. I'm moving on. Hunter x Hunter, chapters 26 to 30. It is a testament to Yoshihiro Togashi's ability to construct interesting scenarios with compelling characters that I still feel genuine stress and tension reading these chapters, even though I already know the outcome after having seen the anime adaptation. Every single event that takes place is governed by such strict rules, and the protagonists are allowed to fail repeatedly, something that isn't often seen in shonen manga. The characters constantly find themselves in situations that seem impossible, often as a result of their own lack of foresight or planning, and then have to reverse engineer a solution. When they can't do that, they have to lean on each other, rely on the kindness of strangers, or even enemies when Hisoka's involved, or just hope for a miracle. On top of all that, I have started to notice the shift in Togashi's art style in this stretch. The characters have changed from resembling the later Yu Yu Hakusho designs and have begun to take on a new vibe unique to Hunter x Hunter. Yeah, 26 to 30 is around where Hunter x Hunter's art style feels like it's noticeably shifted a bit more. And it's still noticeably Togashi's style. Like,
yeah,
he still draws faces mostly the same way. But there's just something about the way that the art feels that makes it feel like it's started shifting away from how he was drawing characters in Yu Yu Hakusho.
Okay.
He's it feels like he's leaning a little harder into I don't want to say fantastical character design elements and things like that, but like he's leaning a little harder into it being a shonen action series, I feel.
Right.
So yeah. But yeah, and then like from like a narrative perspective, I love how hard and how strictly Togashi sticks to rules when he establishes them. Like so many shonen manga authors will introduce a rule and then the main character gets to break that rule just because they're the main character and they have to win. But in Hunter x Hunter, nobody gets to be lucky that way. If the characters are lucky, if the characters are getting out of a situation that they absolutely should not have, it's because someone else basically showed them some kind of favor. Gon should have failed his hunter exam, but Hisoka took an interest in him. So it and that by itself gave Gon enough of like a bizarre guardian angel, even for just a few moments, to get him through. Like Gon absolutely did not make it through the exam on his own power, and he's keenly aware of that, as evidenced by the fact that he tries to reject Hisoka's help, but Hisoka won't let him. And the thing is, Gon is not strong enough to resist Hisoka's help if Hisoka wants to help him. So it really results in this interesting dynamic where Hisoka tells Gon, because there's this whole game that they have to play that's a part of the exam where they're all on an island and everybody's got badges and everybody was assigned a badge that they need to retrieve to get the most number of points, and you have to have 6 points to pass that chunk of the exam. Your own badge is worth 3 points, your target's badge is worth 3 points, and any other badges you happen to come across are worth 1 point each. So you could pass the exam getting 3 badges from guys who aren't your target and then just holding on to your badge and those 3 badges and you pass. But the goal is you have a target. So it's the most efficient thing in most people's minds is get your target's badge. And Gon's target was Hisoka. And Hisoka had been built up in the early chapters up to this point already as this hyper threatening figure. So in the end, Gon, through some pretty clever trickery, gets Hisoka's badge and runs off with it, and that gets Hisoka's attention. And Hisoka was going to let him get away with it too, but then Gon gets got by another guy out of nowhere because he wasn't paying attention to the idea that like someone else could be waiting in the wings. So once this guy gets Gon, Hisoka gets that guy and then gives his badge to Gon, but Gon tries to refuse it, saying like, you know, I didn't win this. Like I got and I don't want your help. But Hisoka again tells him like, you're not strong enough to resist me. Just take the help. And then he tells him, if you can get strong enough to land a punch on me, you can give me my badge back. And this sets up a long-standing personal arc for Gon that is going to continue on for chapters upon chapters into the future, where Gon is going to be training partly with the goal of getting strong enough to hit Hisoka even just once so he can give him his badge back and symbolically repay that debt. Even if it's, you know, long after the exam has concluded and they've both gotten their licenses. It's fantastic, and it's an incredible way to set up a rivalry between a hero and an antagonist. Like it's so interesting too, because especially because of the age gap between the characters. You don't see child characters with adult rivals in manga and anime.
That's true.
But like the fact that like Gon and Hisoka are like foils. They are opposite figures. And Hisoka is very much Gon's rival in Hunter x Hunter. It's like, that's such an interesting dynamic. So yeah, I look forward to reading further. I've said it before and I'll say it again. He might not have written my favorite manga, but I'll never deny that Yoshihiro Togashi is probably the greatest living manga author.
Yeah.
And while neither of them are my favorite, I do love Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter to no end. Like, they're both fantastic. Yeah. Anyway, I gotta keep rolling. All right. Naruto, chapters 26 to 30. While the series hasn't lost any of the aspects that make it engaging or enjoyable to read, I will say that I'm starting to feel the length of this first major arc. Given the depth of emotion Naruto is looking to convey when compared to its predecessors or contemporaries, one can forgive the pacing, but it does feel a bit dragged out. That said, the series is really starting to dig into what makes it an enjoyable experience, showing its heart and delving into the lore in meaningful ways. The first appearance of the nine-tailed chakra occurs in these chapters, hinting at what will become Naruto's Super Saiyan equivalent later in the series.
Nice.
So yeah, like the conflict with Zabuza and Haku, I will say it's starting to feel like it's maybe 1 or 2 chapters too long. By this point in the story. It does end on a pretty strong cliffhanger, this chunk of chapters, which I'm free to spoil since I've read it now in the Manga Study. The cliffhanger that this chunk of chapters ends on is Kakashi has thrust his hand through Haku's chest after Haku has just kind of given Naruto his life story, basically, where Haku has gone over how, he views himself as a tool to be used, and he can only be happy if Zabuza, this person he cares about, is using him effectively. And if he can't be an effective tool, then he doesn't deserve to live. And I think I've talked about this before, but that's another really interesting character dynamic where Haku loves Zabuza. Zabuza is the closest thing to a father Haku has ever properly known. And he does not believe that Zabuza returns that love, but he doesn't care. Because he knows that as long as he's useful, Zabuza will keep him around and keep treating him well. And for him, that's all he needs. Haku does not need his love to be returned, which is such a pure motivation, but it's also so heartbreaking as a character, that he values himself so little that he willingly attaches himself to someone that he does not believe even a little bit actually cares about him. Which, of course, as this arc wraps up, that's going to be shown to be not quite the case, but Zabuza isn't willing to show those emotions until after Haku's already dead. So unfortunately, Haku doesn't actually get to see how much Zabuza actually cared about him. Which, again, just kind of compounds upon the tragedy of those characters. And the fact that, they're villains. These are the first 2 proper villains of Naruto as a series. And Kishimoto has committed so hard to making the reader care about them, as people. Is such an interesting direction to take for your opening saga. But yeah, other than some weird pacing issues, Naruto is staying on a really solid, really good track. Nice. Into its 30s. So yeah, I'm looking forward to more from that. Next up is one of my personal favorites, Claymore, chapters 26 to 30. This series only continues its upward trajectory in quality. With such a simple premise to start with, I'm surprised that Claymore has managed to gradually and seamlessly build up such an intriguing story. At the 30-chapter mark, there is now a functional, if simple, power system, monsters with unique abilities monsters with more unique abilities than simply being big and scary, and a central antagonist with mysteries to be uncovered. Claire's unique talent that she can sense Yoma energy, Yoma being the monsters in the story, with such acuity that she can predict the movements of both Yoma and her fellow Claymores, presents an interesting explanation as to how she makes such an effective hunter despite her rock bottom rank within the organization. Also, the artwork is increasing in quality, from the grotesque details in the monster designs to the intricacies of the fight choreography. But yeah, like the Claymores themselves are starting to display a greater depth to the power system than I thought there was. I thought it was as simple as the Claymores are injected with Yoma powers, and like that just makes them stronger and heal a little bit faster, and they can swing their big swords real hard to slay the monsters. That is not the case. There is a greater complexity to the power system than that. There was one Claymore who was able to stretch her limbs like Luffy, which is nuts. I was not expecting to see that.
Yeah.
There's one who pushed her Yoma energy so far past its limit that she regrew a severed limb. Yeah. And like even just Claire being able to sense Yoma energy so precisely that she can predict movements is something that's unique to her as a Claymore. That's not something that the other Claymores are really capable of, except for maybe one other who is shown in like side bits, not like a side story, but like she's shown off to the side working directly with a higher up from the organization to sense what the four Claymores who are in the main fight for this chunk of the story are doing, and she's able to sense them from miles away and tell what they're doing, which is way stronger than what Claire can do. But yeah, like the four Claymores in this stretch of chapters, Claire and her three buddies whose names escape me at the moment because it's been a while. But they get grouped up and sent on a mission to fight a voracious eater, which at this point in the series has been revealed to be usually a Claymore who has pushed their Yoma energies so far over the breaking point that they turn into a hyper powerful and intelligent Yoma. And not only that, the one that they find is a male, which shouldn't be possible because only women become Claymores.
Oh, yeah.
And if only women become Claymores, then the only awakened Yoma should be female. But this one was a male, and it's revealed through one of the Claymores who is particularly knowledgeable that he is probably a leftover from back in the days when they tried creating male Claymores. But it was found that men cannot resist the urge to awaken into Yoma. Whereas it's easier for women to ignore like that call to become a monster. So yeah, they were sent to fight, but however, male awakened Yoma are. Is your dog okay?
Yeah, I don't know what the crap she's barking at. It's probably neighbors or Amazon truck.
Okay. But yeah, male awakened Yoma are like 10 times more powerful than the females. So like these four Claymores were sent effectively on a suicide mission, and it's like a miracle that they won. So they all kind of put their heads together and figure out that the reason they were sent on this mission is because all four of them have been recorded almost awakening, but stopping short of it. They all kind of went over that edge, but then came back. So they were sent on a suicide mission because they were deemed a risk. So yeah, it's interesting how like this Claymore organization in itself is becoming as much of an antagonist as the monsters are. So yeah, it's interesting. Claymore's really shaping up to be something crazy and good and interesting. I'm digging it so far. All right, but next up, we have Bleach, chapters 26 to 30. The series continues to deepen its well of characters and lore to draw upon, introducing spiritually sensitive characters who are unfamiliar with the structure of the spiritual world. The storytelling potential is immense, and it's something Kubo actually manages to take advantage of in the future, though not entirely to the extent he may have intended. It is at this point in the series that it will become apparent to the more astute reader that Tite Kubo wasn't really sure what shape Bleach would take in the future, and though lore always remains consistent after new elements are introduced, it does feel a bit thrown together. Yeah, this is the point in the series where it's starting to become kind of obvious that Kubo doesn't know what Bleach is going to be. He was just kind of writing an excuse to draw cool characters, basically. Like you can tell, he just kind of wanted to draw cool characters, and that's it. He wasn't super interested in telling the most complex or interesting story that he could have, which is fine. You know, style over substance is a valid approach to manga. It's just Bleach is such an interesting premise. It just feels like squandered potential to see like what it eventually turned into, which I know that like it really cleaned up story wise in the 1,000-Year Blood War later, but I haven't seen that yet. All I know is that Bleach was kind of a mess. So I'll be able to speak more to whether or not it improves later when I actually get that far.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really all I have to say about Bleach. Again, this one I might have had more to say about it if this had been recorded like sooner after reading it, but it's been a while, so I don't exactly remember what happened in the last 5 chapters.
Yeah.
Wait, no, I know what happened in the last 5 chapters. Never mind. Like, there's a character named Don Kanonji who gets introduced, who's like a TV exorcist, like ghost hunter type of character, and he shows up and shows that he actually genuinely can see spirits. It's not a hoax, and he's not faking it. And when Ichigo realizes this, he is confused that Don Kanonji doesn't actually know very much about the spiritual realm. Like, this guy has been winging it. And unfortunately, he's been making things worse. So Ichigo has to like try and stop him from making things worse. Because there's like Don Kanonji comes to Ichigo's town because there's like a haunted hospital or something, and he's going to exorcise it. And when Ichigo shows up, Ichigo was also born with the ability to see spirits, but he knows more about how the spiritual world works because Rukia made him a soul reaper. And so he sees that, you know, there is a spirit haunting the hospital. It's a I cannot remember the name for it. There's like a Japanese word for this type of spirit, but it's a spirit that's bound to one place. Jibakude, I think is what it's called. Yeah, because there's a manga that I'm reading right now that isn't a part of the study, where it's about Shiba Inu ghosts, and they call them Jiba Inu as like a pun. But yeah, Jibakude, I think, is the name of like a spirit that's bound to a place. And Don Kanonji finds the spirit like chained to the hospital, and he's like, I'm gonna exorcise the spirit. And he starts jamming his like spirit cane into the chain on the spirit's chest and widening the hole in its chest and effectively speeding up its hollowing. So Ichigo tries to stop him, but he's too late. So now Don Kanonji has created a hollow that Ichigo needs to fight. So yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, it's interesting to see characters who are spiritually sensitive but don't know the rules.
Yeah.
Which is something that I think Bleach really could have played around with more before it started being all about Soul Reapers and Arankars and Fullbringers and Quincy's and all that. All a bunch of nonsense words that aren't going to have any meaning to you until I get further into this. All right. Next up, Toriko, chapters 26 to 30. In true Toriko fashion, the big blowout fight that occurs between the titular character and his first real villain, a remotely operated robot, was simply a precursor to the more important hunt that will take place in the next stretch of chapters. The series is doing wonders in terms of establishing a hierarchy of power, both in terms of individual characters and organizations running the gourmet world, with Toriko actually sustaining some minor injuries in his battle with the robot, but still pulling ahead with an easy victory. With new allies Rin, Sunny, and the battle wolf cub Terry Cloth at his side, Toriko is starting to take the shape of a more traditional shonen battle manga.
Nice.
Yeah, Toriko's starting to actually get into something resembling an ongoing plot. All of the previous arcs have been very self-contained monster hunts that have mostly been about world building and introducing a supporting cast. But this most recent arc that I just finished has really been focusing on actually like getting a story rolling. But yeah, Toriko even has like a wolf cub. Because there's this whole thing with this like extinct wolf species called battle wolf, which is a wolf that's like the size of an elephant, and it was cloned, but somehow a pregnant specimen was cloned, so it gave birth. Don't ask me how that works. And it was injured in the battle that Toriko had with the robot as he was trying to defend this wolf. So she was only able to spend a few minutes with the cub that she gave birth to before she died on her feet, like a true badass warrior in any anime or manga does. So Toriko adopted the wolf cub and named it Terry Cloth. He just calls it Terry for short. But yeah, so now Toriko has and by the way, this cub is the size of an adult regular wolf. So there's that. But yeah, so it's interesting. But yeah, like more characters are starting to fill in around Toriko, and it's looking like there's a bit more of a regular cast filling in. So yeah, Toriko's kind of turning into a more traditional battle manga at this point, and it's still very much about the monster hunts, but now there's actually an antagonist to compete with.
Yeah.
All right, next up. Ooh, here it is. It's the big boy, Tokyo Ghoul, chapters 26 to 30. Still my favorite out of all 20 of these.
Yeah.
The series ventured into the realm of action for a brief period in these chapters, showcasing the author's eye for striking fight choreography and a talent for good pacing even in action scenes. Other than that, there isn't much to report in terms of progress for the series. It continues to be one of the best looking series in the study. It's making steady strides in the narrative and keeping a good pace, and it's maintained a focus on its themes and characters. No dips in quality, but no real spikes either. I'm trying to think. 26
for me, my dog hates Tokyo Ghoul, but screw my dog. For me, it like I don't remember the specific points because I remember a lot of Tokyo Ghoul, but I remember a lot of the last half of it, and then a lot more of Re. Just because it's like if you include Re, I mean you have to because it doesn't end at Tokyo Ghoul.
No.
So it's like 300 something chapters. So like there's a good bit I do remember of the first like 40 to 50 chapters of Tokyo Ghoul, but I remember a lot more of after that.
Yeah, I think this is the point where Motto dies. He was the mentor for Agent Amon.
Yeah.
And yeah, Toka kills Motto. And then I think towards the end of the stretch is when Toka kind of takes the little girl ghoul in. I can't remember her name. I think it's Megumi. I'm not sure though. Megumi is such a stereotypical little girl name in manga.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember if that's actually what her name is. Anyway, but yeah, like
because her mom was killed by the guys, right?
Yeah, by the doves. So yeah, Toka killed the dove that killed her mother, or Megumi's mother. But yeah, and then Toka takes the girl in, and they start living together. But yeah, and that's like where I left off. But yeah, no, it was pretty solid. And the moment when Toka sees Motto's wedding ring after taking his glove off hit pretty hard too. Because yeah, it's such an interesting and complicated dilemma where neither side is in the wrong, but you also can't really agree with either of them either.
Yeah. And this isn't really a spoiler, but like you see more of that regarding is it Motto?
Yeah,
you see more of that regarding like the ripples and the effects, not just with the doves, but like you had mentioned, wedding ring and stuff like that.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see as things play out more in the future. All right, but yeah, other than that, there's not a whole lot else to report for Tokyo Ghoul, so we're gonna move on. One Punch Man, chapters 26 to 30. The series continues its seemingly relentless expansion of the scope and scale of its world, with even more heroes being introduced to fill out the Hero Association and new villains to consistently threaten them. Saitama is shown to have great strength of spirit as well. When random citizens start bad-mouthing powerful heroes who fell in battle to insanely strong opponents that Saitama brought down in one punch, he downplays his power and relevance to the situation, allowing people to think he's a glory-hogging sham just to preserve the other heroes' reputations. I'm very much looking forward to what comes next as the series continues to present new challenges to Saitama's character.
Nice.
Because, yeah, like, when it comes to a character like Saitama, where the whole gimmick is that he wins every fight in one punch, challenging and attacking his character is really the only thing you can do.
Yeah.
So, because, like, this was the conclusion of the Deep Sea King arc, where, the Deep Sea King was the first threat shown in the manga where, like, that villain absolutely would have won if Saitama didn't show up. Multiple heroes either died or were grievously injured in the fight with him. And they were strong heroes too. And then Saitama shows up and beats him in one punch. Not just one punch, a punch so strong that it clears the downpour of rain from the sky and brings the sun out. Like, he cleared the weather.
Yeah.
And if we're to assume that Saitama is holding back as much as he physically can every time he throws a punch, just because he's trying to make the fight last, because he thinks it's fun.
Yeah.
And that's the weakest punch he can throw. It's, but yeah, so it's, and it's a great moment too, because like after Saitama beats the villain, there's this huge crowd of civilians nearby. And one of them starts like trash talking all the heroes who fell. Like, these are our heroes. This is the best they can do. They're not that tough if this one villain can bring them all down. And Saitama, hearing this, kind of slumps his shoulders, knowing what he needs to do in this moment. Like, he's not looking forward to having to do this, but he knows that it's something that he should do to help maintain faith in the hero system in general. And he says, "Oh boy, it sure is a good thing all those other heroes weakened this guy for me. I definitely wouldn't have won if it had been just me." And like he like openly and loudly downplays his own power just to protect all the other heroes' reputations.
Yeah.
So it's, which again, that speaks like volumes to Saitama's character in general, because he's one of those characters where you look at him and you think that he looks pretty bland, so you think he's going to be bland too, and he behaves rather blandly. Like, he's not a super exciting guy. But it's those moments that like make me love Saitama as a character. He's an incredible hero for the series he's been fit into. So it doesn't matter if he can beat Goku. Everybody shut up. It doesn't matter if he can beat Goku. What matters is that he works. He works for the series he's in. That's the only thing we should be caring about. Power scalers, you're wasting your lives. You people are a bunch of nerds and dorks.
All right. For the listener, you saw or heard no really time pass, but it's now a little over an hour later. We're back to recording. Tio is now going into Food Wars. We're both in two different mindsets from an hour ago.
Yeah,
so this
dude.
will be interesting.
So I don't remember if it was in the recording, but I mentioned that I took some ibuprofen earlier, and I'm pretty sure it kicked in. for anybody listening, I like, genuinely, if Brandon didn't text me to let me know he was ready to start recording again, I would have fallen asleep before he got back. Like, he got me right as my eyes were starting to close. So I'm definitely in a different mindset. Like, do you have plans to get to bed at any specific time? Because if not, then we don't got to rush the next bits. No,
not entirely.
Okay, cool. If things go too long, obviously just tell me to shut up. But but yeah, no, like, this will also actually offer you some time to like ask questions instead of me just reading through my notes and then blandly giving my opinions on things. I have a hard time just kind of like diving into I mean, it probably didn't sound like it, especially when I was talking about Hunter x Hunter, Yu Yu Hakusho, and Naruto earlier. But it is a little hard for me to like read through those notes and then just kind of like dive into my opinions like unprompted. It's easier when I got someone asking me pointed questions.
Yeah.
Or maybe not necessarily pointed questions, but questions that can direct me a little bit.
Okay, I'll try to come up with.
And you don't have to.
No, I will. They're not going to be as on topic as you might think. It'll still be dealing with the manga, but I'll ask some questions.
So what are your opinions about the geopolitical situation in butthole stand? Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
How can Food Wars fix all these problems?
Yeah. By solving world hunger, probably. Anyway.
That's true.
Food Wars, Shokugeki no Soma, chapters 26 to 30. First try. This stretch of chapters is doing wonders for Soma's presentation as a character. Hang on a second. No, okay, yeah, 26 to 30. We haven't done milestone 6, have we?
This is milestone 6.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure. So the pits. Okay, all right. I must have reread these notes to myself at some point because this felt really familiar. All right. Anyway, so yeah, Food Wars 26 to 30. This stretch of chapters is doing wonders for Soma's presentation as a character. By starting the series with an overpowered protagonist, at least in the sense that he seemed unable to fail, It has now dedicated nearly 15 chapters to challenging Soma in ways that truly confront his shortcomings and force him to adjust his strategies and overcome his own limitations. Starting with Soma and Megami's technical loss in their Shokugeki against Chef Shinomiya, an event that would have resulted in their shared expulsion had it not been for the mercy of their teachers, which carries with it the weight of those teachers' expectations for improvement. This stretch ends with a cliffhanger teasing the potential for Soma's second consecutive failure. By breaking down the untouchable status of the protagonist in such a profoundly absolute way, the series is really setting up his proper rise through the ranks of the cooking world. Also, 2 more potential rivals have been introduced. The series might need to call an exterminator because that's starting to look like an infestation. Those were actually in my notes, those last couple comments.
Nice.
Yeah, two more rivals. That's like 5 rivals so far in 30 chapters.
Dang.
Yeah, it's getting to be a little extreme. I get that it's like a cooking thing, and like, you know, a lot of challengers are going to rise up, but like when every single character is introduced with the weight of this person could be Soma's like equal, this person could be Soma's next rival, this person's got like something to prove, and they've got a grudge against Soma, and they want to beat him in a cooking challenge, and it's like, all right, calm down. Like, a couple of these characters could just be like one-time challengers and then, like, you know, sweep them aside. They don't need to stick around in the periphery of the series forever and be like, I'm gonna beat you someday, Soma. It's like, no, like, have one of them lose and be like, well, I guess I'll go kill myself. Like, just or just like have them get swept away in some fashion. Like they don't need to stick around and be like, you're my rival now, Soma. It's like, get in line, buddy. But yeah, no, I really like the way that Food Wars is starting to break down the infallibility of Soma as like a chef.
Mm.
It's showing that even his resourcefulness can only take him so far if he can't push himself out of his comfort zone. Because his comfort zone is very much, you know, good old down home cooking. And like, you know, cheap ways to imitate higher class cuisine. You know, he elevates low class food through sheer skill and experience, to a point where it can compete with higher class cuisine. That's a part of the appeal of Soma. That's why I like him as a character. I don't like rich people food. I like poor people food. I grew up eating poor people food, and it's what tastes good.
Yeah, he can
So
make
like
a mean gourmet grilled cheese.
Oh my god, dude! I want grilled cheese and tomato soup right freaking now.
There's a place. It's a food truck. It's
There's a
either in,
place in France.
I think it's in Fort Walton or something, called like
Yes.
Cheesus or something. I don't know. I might be I might be coming up with my own food truck name. It's something dealing with cheese, and
Jesus
it's nothing.
crust.
That could be it. Honestly.
Oh really?
I
I was
can't
gonna like
remember.
that's gonna be our food truck. You and I are
Yeah,
starting a business. We're calling
but
it Jesus Crust.
like the main like thing that they specialize in is like just an assortment of grilled cheese sandwiches.
Oh,
Yeah.
huh. That sounds really good.
Mm-hmm.
If I ever make my way over to Fort Walton Beach at any point in my life, I'll have to give them a shot.
Yeah. There's a cheesus crust or whatever the heck it's called. I have no idea what it's called.
You'll have to look it up and get back to me about it.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm putting the burden of the research on you. I am reading notes right now. But yeah, no, like like I said, Soma, where I'm at in the manga right now, Soma's in a position where just being like resourceful and plucky isn't enough anymore. He actually needs to figure out how to elevate his level of cooking to compete with his classmates and pass his current trial. Because just doing things the way he's been doing them, as interesting as it's not working anymore.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that the series is willing to break down the infallible protagonist, and the fact that it's been doing that for like 15 chapters has also been really interesting. That's like half the series run at this point. So it's I'm looking forward to seeing how he has continued to be challenged over the course of the series and how things play out for him.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I've been looking. It is called Jesus, and I've been just stewing and drooling at the mouth at some of these sandwiches. I need to exit off. Jesus.
That's an incredible name for him. Yeah, dude. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I've been drinking some cola.
You're good.
That one wasn't the popcorn chicken. Still tasted like the popcorn chicken though, because that's what's on my stomach.
Yeah.
I got some. They didn't have any regular. They didn't have any regular hot. And by hot I mean warm, not spicy. 8-piece chicken things at Publix today, so I got a refrigerated one instead. So I might eat some of that later, so tomorrow. But because the thing is, for the warm ones, they only had hot and spicy. It's like I don't want hot and spicy 8-piece.
Yeah. I like a hot and spicy 8-piece, but if it's right before, like not saying this is public speaking, we're literally just talking, but if I'm like talking with someone, I don't want to have like spicy food in me, because then like I'm just going to be like burping or
like it's gonna bring up way more gas than even just the grease of regular chicken would. So I went a little overboard getting perishables at Publix today, because I also got some turkey and cheddar sliders.
If I truly had no fear, I would eat a very spicy meal and drink Dr. Pepper with it. And then like right before like teaching a class or preaching, if I had no fear, I would do that.
Eat a hot and spicy 8-piece and chug a 2-liter of Dr. Pepper and go up and preach. You're gonna have Satan crawling out of your stomach. Good morning, congregation. How's everybody's Sunday going?
And then Legion said,
as the pigs throw themselves from the cliff. That's a raw deal for those pigs. Anyway, we gotta. I think those are all my thoughts on Shokugeki.
So that's Food Wars.
That's Food Wars. But yeah, it's really in an interesting position right now. All right, next up, My Hero Academia, chapters 26 to 30. Sidebar before getting into these notes. Went and saw the most recent movie in the theater with some friends for My Hero Academia. It was pretty cool. I liked it.
Nice.
Good, final battle. Probably the closest thing to a Deku versus All Might fight we'll ever see. Because the villain of the movie was a guy who fashioned himself after All Might, and he called himself Dark Might.
Oh, very clever name.
Yeah. A lot of things in the movie kind of felt like a Full Metal Alchemist reference on top of that, which I think is fun. Because the villain's power is called alchemy, and it largely relies on him using golden coins as a catalyst to alter the matter in his environment. And also, like, he creates he uses this power to create like homunculus soldiers. The theme song of the movie is called Homunculus. And then also one of the new original characters for the movie has a robotic right arm and left leg.
Nice.
Which is like an obvious direct Full Metal Alchemist reference. It because I know alchemy in general has its own real world history, but there was too much about the way it was presented in this movie specifically that felt like it was an FMA reference directly.
Yeah.
Especially since the studio that animates the My Hero series, Bones, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they worked on Full Metal Alchemist back in the day. I could be wrong. Bones could be, because I know that Bones is a younger studio, generally speaking. Like in the grand landscape of Japanese animation studios, they're a little bit more recent. So that I could be wrong, but I feel like way back in the day, Bones might have worked on FMA. I'll have to Google that, or someone, if anybody cares enough to leave a comment or something on YouTube correcting me.
Actually.
Yeah. But yeah, so My Hero Academia chapters 26 to 30. The series continues to push the characters to new heights with unique challenges for both their powers and personalities. In particular, Bakugo is being challenged now that he has been faced with a much larger array of classmates with dynamic and powerful quirks on par with his own, forcing him to adapt to situations in ways he hasn't had to deal with before. While this threatens Bakugo's ego, Deku is right at home as the underdog, continuing to outthink his opponents while his powers still pose a threat to himself and those around him. So yeah, as like kind of the at this point in the series, dual leads, Deku and Bakugo are approaching the challenges of being in this superhero school very differently, because growing up, obviously Dekugo, that's probably their ship name. I don't know. Deku, he was quirkless. He had no powers, so he's used to existing in a world where everybody else is free to just use their powers as needed, and he's got to think his way around it. Like he's, he might have a superpower now, but he still doesn't know how to use it without severely injuring himself. So he still, for the most part, can't just whip his power out willy-nilly. He's got to think about it.
Yeah.
And for the most part, avoid using his powers, especially during a sports festival. Bakugo, on the other hand, has spent his entire life being impressive, being told he's special, because compared to everybody else, he was. Shooting explosions out of his hands is something incredible compared to all the other kids around him growing up. But now at UA, where he's in a class specifically geared towards kids whose powers accommodate their dreams of becoming superheroes, he's faced with people who are equivalent to or better than him all the time. And it's a huge blow to his ego. Another, which is probably one of the reasons he blew up so hard in his first training fight with Deku, because on top of being challenged by everyone around him for the first time in his life, now this kid that he used to relentlessly bully suddenly has a quirk that is 10 times more impressive than his. That had to be like just a complete break in reality for him.
Yeah.
And he, obviously is unaware that Deku wasn't born with this quirk. So from his perspective, the only possible answer is that Deku was hiding it from him as some sort of twisted way to mock him. Because in his mind, there's no other reason. Bakugo is so interesting as like a bully character. The way that, like, all the ways that he is confronted and challenged, and the ways that it changes his character later. Because obviously I'm a fan of the anime. I've been keeping up with it as much as I can. I haven't watched any of season 7 yet, but I'm working my way up to it. But yeah, I've seen the way Bakugo changes as a character over time, and it's so interesting the ways that, like, him suddenly not being top dog anymore causes his character to change after, of course, the initial growing pains that he has to get past. And because he was a big fish in a small pond, and now all of a sudden he's just dumped in the ocean.
Yeah.
And obviously Deku has kind of been facing the opposite problem. He was a small fish in that same small pond, and now he's going through a growth spurt, and it's causing more damage than good at the moment. So he still has to figure it out. So yeah, like they're their parallel arcs are very interesting to observe, going back and rereading these early chapters, which again is very nostalgic for me because I remember a long time ago, reading the early volumes of My Hero Academia for the first time, because I read the manga before I started watching the show. And yeah, so this has been a fun trip through memory lane for me in particular. I was still working at TJ Maxx when I first started reading My Hero Academia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like 10 or 11 years ago. 10, I think it was 10 years ago. My Hero was pretty new when I started reading it. So yeah, it was about 10 years ago that I started My Hero, and yeah, now here we are. I stopped keeping up with it around volume 23, which I think is about when Deku unlocked Black Whip for the first time. So yeah, I used to keep up with the manga to the point that like I was reading an arc in the manga, and then the next season was the adaptation of those arcs. But yeah, no, eventually it started taking up too much space on my shelf, costing more money than I wanted it to, which $10 a volume, that's not super expensive.
That's not too bad, but when it goes 430 chapters, it definitely stacks up.
Yeah, it does. So around volume 23, that's a total of about $230.
Yeah.
Retail price. So, which is, cheaper than Marvel or DC would be charging for a lot less content. But, yeah, no, I had to stop around there, and it got to a point where like, it was actually kind of getting to the point where I didn't know which ones were the most recent volumes anymore. I was losing track of which ones I had on my shelf. I couldn't remember how far I'd gotten. And, I was just getting tired trying to stay ahead, because it got to the point where like that was kind of my thing. I was the guy who was ahead in the manga while my friends were waiting for every season to come out.
Yeah.
But it got kind of exhausting trying to maintain that. So I was like, I'll just wait for the show.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. Moving on. Black Clover, chapters 26 to 30. In a shocking twist, this fight is actually lasting a while. Black Clover's pace is usually so brisk that fights don't last longer than 5 chapters, but this one looks as though it means to go on for at least a couple chapters longer. There is little to report outside Yuno learning how to use bigger and more complex spells. The ability to channel his mana into a Sylph spirit is an interesting twist on the established power system, but it's the only major development in this stretch of chapters. Yeah, like for this particular stretch of Black Clover, the only major thing that happened is that the character Yuno, who is Asta's main rival, discovered that like he can summon a fairy spirit with his wind magic. She's called, I believe, she hasn't been named in the manga yet where I'm at, but she's called Belle later as an obvious Tinkerbell reference.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's one of 2 or 3-ish female characters who becomes obsessed with Yuno, which for her it makes more sense. He's her wizard. He's her magic knight. He's the one who summons her. There's another character who I'm particularly fond of, and like I get it, like Yuno kind of saved her ish a little bit, but other than that, I don't like. That's kind of a flimsy reason for her to just be obsessed with him, I guess.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, I'm of the opinion that Yuno is a pretty bland character overall. I mean, I'm liking him in the manga so far, but for some reason, when I watch the anime, I'm like, Yuno.
Yeah.
Because Black Clover is currently the only anime that me and Clay are watching together that Clay is showing to me. Like, he's ahead of me on that one. He's a pretty big fan of Black Clover. And unlike Demon Slayer, I get why for Black Clover. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying my time with Black Clover. And a lot of people whine about Black Clover because it's super basic and it's super straightforward. But like for me, I'm okay with with something that's a little more straightforward, a little more, just kind of what you see is what you get, and I like that about Black Clover.
Yeah. It's okay to have that here and there.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't need to be super deep. It is what it is, and the thing is, it knows what it is. It's not trying to like present itself as anything deeper or more meaningful. It's so yeah, like I can't begrudge Black Clover for like being what it says on the tin. So yeah, and the thing is, I tried Black Clover on my own years ago when it was new, and I didn't care much for it. But for some reason, Clay sitting me down, encouraging me to give it another shot, and kind of pushing me through those rough early bits, helped me a lot. And also, I think just his enthusiasm for the series rubbed off on me a lot. Because the thing is, reading the manga by myself is just fine. But if I was trying to watch the anime on my own, I don't know if I would keep going with it. It's watching with a friend who likes it a lot that makes it a more enjoyable experience. Because then, like, his enthusiasm pumps me up to watch more of it. And, like, we have really interesting conversations about the show while we're watching it.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where Black Clover is growing on me more as a communal experience than it otherwise would have if I was watching it alone.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the manga, the manga's doing really good too. Like I'm really enjoying, the art is great, and getting better. I've always liked Asta as the main character. I've always felt that Asta himself is the best character in his own world. It's rare for the main character of a series, especially a shonen manga, to like actually genuinely be the best character. Though I do tend to gravitate towards protagonists a lot more than secondary characters, simply because by their nature as protagonists, there's more to dig into from a like analytical perspective. But yeah, like Asta in general, I've always for a while I was of the opinion that Asta was a better character than the show he was in. And I don't think that's untrue, but at the same time, I've realized now that his presence really elevates the show he's in and makes it better in general.
Right.
Because like early on, my opinion was like, oh, this show doesn't deserve its main character. But now I'm like, it kind of does, and it really does need him too.
Mm.
The show's quality is something that I've really come around on as I've watched more of it, and by proxy, the manga as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good. I like Black Clover. If there's anybody out there reading along and you're enjoying Black Clover too, that's cool. If you're not enjoying it, I get that too. Like I totally understand why Black Clover wouldn't be someone's thing as well. Because like I said, at first it wasn't mine. It took a friend really liking it and encouraging me to give it another shot that got me to get into it more.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like if you're not into Black Clover, I get it. I do. I like it. Of what a lot of people I think would say is in more recent years an equivalent to the big three, probably Black Clover, Demon Slayer, and Jujutsu Kaisen would be three of the ones that come to mind for votes. I wouldn't quite put My Hero Academia in that group. It predates them by a little too much.
Yeah.
But of the modern big three, or at least the recent big three, I would say Black Clover is probably the best. I do like it more than Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen. So, speaking of which, Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, chapters 26 to 30. Here we go. Well, what little respect I gained for Zenitsu's character got completely walked back and then some in this stretch. He whines and shrieks and waffles about for chapters on end without contributing anything meaningful. But he does the thunder breathing thing. That's you. That's your voice. And you sound stupid. While Inosuke can be amusing, his presence can also be a bit grating. Unfortunately, the author of Demon Slayer only gives each member of the supporting cast exactly one note to harp on endlessly without rounding them out with more interesting traits. This by itself reduces Tanjiro to little more than a babysitter for his own allies, leaving him with little room to breathe as a character. The potential for interesting stories to be told through Tanjiro's struggle is completely stifled for as long as Zenitsu and Inosuke occupy page space. Yeah, now I generally like Inosuke as a character. I like wild man characters. It's an archetype I'm a fan of. But yeah, in this series, both Zenitsu and Inosuke occupy too much page space for who they are as characters.
Yeah, I agree.
And like I said in my notes, it really stifles any potential Tanjiro has to have more interesting stories told with him.
Yeah.
If it had just stayed Tanjiro and Nezuko, so much more could have been done.
It would, like, I know people are going to see it as some sort of classic, even though it shouldn't be. The reason it will be seen as a classic is how popular it is. But if it was literally just this brother sister sort of thing, most of the manga, if the mangaka was interested in telling that type of story, I could easily see it going down as a classic, and not out of popularity, but out of quality.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that Tanjiro and Nezuko really should have just stayed the two main characters, especially if the only alternative is Zenitsu and Inosuke joining them. Because like if Zenitsu and Inosuke were less annoying and more interesting in general as characters, this wouldn't be as much of a complaint. But because both of them are fully one note and mostly grating, it gets to a point where like Tanjiro is just their babysitter, and he is really stifled as the protagonist because he has to share page space with these two morons. So it's Demon Slayer would have been so much better off if it was just Tanjiro and Nezuko. And maybe occasionally Inosuke, but not as a main cast member.
He pops in here and there.
Yeah, he would have been more
occasional adventure.
Yeah, like more fun as a fan favorite guest character who pops in to be weird every couple dozen chapters and then disappears after a big arc.
Yeah.
Like, give him one cool moment in whatever the final battle looks like for the series, and there you go. Inosuke would have been a top tier secondary character. But yeah. And again, this could just be a personal bias against Demon Slayer, manifesting in harsher criticism than I offer to other series on the list. But,
Well, for me, it's like I never watched the anime, and I probably won't. I will one day, just because I heard the action's really good. But for me, like I didn't really buy into the hype and stuff when I got into the manga, and when I read those first 100 chapters, like I've described it before, it's for the most part an average shonen. Where it shines is whenever you have those rest in peace moments with Tanjiro. And that's a key thing. You were talking about like all these other side characters and all that stuff. The stuff that shines is when it's just Tanjiro interacting with someone that is dying, basically.
Yeah,
Those
which
are
is a little
the
morbid. Yeah.
highlights. It's very morbid, but I like it a lot because I don't know, it just, those moments heighten the manga for me. But then we go back down and we bring in Zenitsu and bring in Inosuke and we just have this and that. And it's like, I understand we can't do the the rest in peace moments every other chapter because that would get grating and it'd run its course sort of thing.
Yeah.
But the way it is now, where it is just average shonen and then those moments pop up, when I was reading, I was like, man, like this writer is more than just an average shonen writer. But then, like, when you get out of those moments, it's like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it really comes across like the author himself doesn't understand where his strengths lie.
Mm-hmm.
And his strengths lie very much in what he does differently.
Yeah.
It's when he does things like everybody else that Demon Slayer suffers.
Yeah, very much so.
Because there are some authors who do things the way everybody else does, and it works out really well. Look at Black Clover, as I mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Yuki Tabata is the name of the author of Black Clover. He does a great job just kind of doing shonen. Like that's what Black Clover is just doing shonen, but a little more efficiently. And
The issue is with Demon Slayer is like you see the potential of this writer and you see within him that he has much higher writing skills and potential. He just doesn't tap into it that much in Demon Slayer.
Now, here's one of the good things about Demon Slayer's popularity, though. That author is absolutely going to get more opportunities.
That's true.
Which means that he's going to have the opportunity to really home in on what makes his writing unique and interesting and really improve far beyond what Demon Slayer could accomplish.
Yeah.
As long as he's able to recognize that, again, it's the things he did differently with Demon Slayer that made it interesting in any capacity. But it's anytime he tries to play on tired old shonen tropes like the funny coward character and the crazy wild man who just wants to fight, that it starts to drag itself down.
Yeah. And that's the thing is I haven't even read like a crap ton of manga or watched a crap ton of anime, but just the dozens of anime I've watched, dozens of manga I've read, like if I can pick up on like, oh my gosh, this feels like everything else sort of thing, then the average manga reader or the average anime watcher or whatever should at least definitely see that. Surprisingly, I think the reason people didn't see it with Demon Slayer is it may have been a lot of people's like first 10 anime sort of thing.
Demon Slayer, another kind of decent thing about Demon Slayer's popularity is that it was a pretty big gateway anime for a lot of people. My Hero Academia was 5 years earlier, or I think it was actually only 3 years earlier when it comes to anime adaptations. But yeah, like what My Hero Academia was for a lot of people only a few years before, Demon Slayer was around 2019.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, and the thing is, like, but here's the thing: you mentioned you might want to watch it for the good-looking action scenes. I'll make a recommendation to you. There's another franchise animated by the same studio that's going to give you way more on top of really pretty animation and action scenes. It's called Fate.
I'll get into Fate eventually too. The reason I haven't is because I know personally that I probably will get sucked into it.
Oh yeah.
I can't make that commitment yet.
Oh yeah,
I have commitment issues.
This wasn't a why haven't you gotten into Fate joke. This was more of a hey, you probably didn't know Fate and Demon Slayer were from the same studio sort of deal.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Specifically Fate Zero, Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works, and the Fate Stay Night Heaven's Feel trilogy of films. Like those are the three specific Fate properties animated by Ufotable. but yeah, they do both. They do Demon Slayer and they do Fate, and Fate is the one that you watch if instead of characters posturing about how strong and cool they are every time they punch each other or swing their sword, instead they debate philosophy.
Yeah.
And not just like weird generic anime philosophy of like, why is it wrong to kill everyone? It's because life has value and I like friendship. No, it's not stuff like that. It's like, you think that your role as king is to be a servant to your people? How naive! Like that sort of thing. It's like that's like real in-depth, like characters challenging each other's perceptions of reality sort of thing.
Yeah, if anyone wants, it's not a anime because they'll never make an anime of it because it's not flashy enough for people.
Yeah.
But if anyone wants good, it's great manga overall, but has some of the best philosophy discussions in any manga or comics I've really read. Vagabond, highly recommend.
I knew that was going to be the one you were. The Berserk and Vinland Saga crowd has really been paying a lot of attention to Vagabond lately. Like,
because if you've read or watched Vinland Saga, or you've read and watched Berserk, you're usually looking for more stuff that isn't in. It's not going to be exact, but is like in that same vein.
Yeah.
Those three are usually the ones that people circle to. Like if you're watching or reading Berserk, you're eventually going to find out or hear about Vagabond or Vinland Saga. Same thing with the other ones. Vinland Saga, you're going to find out about Berserk and Vagabond. Vagabond, you're going to find out about Berserk and Vinland Saga, sort of thing. It's if you get into one, you're going to find out about the other two.
Some would say those are the big three of seinen manga.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because they are kind of the three seinen that everybody who is into seinen specifically as a genre really gets into.
Yeah.
Not, and that's like not even speaking to the fact that all three of them are. Now I can't speak for Vagabond personally. I've seen some artwork, but I can't speak for the narrative. That's your job to sell. But what I know of Berserk and Vinland Saga, though, is that they are A, gorgeous to look at, and B, beautifully crafted, character-driven stories about perseverance.
Yeah, that's the key to all three of them is, they all have different branches of it, but each one very much is perseverance of a character and them constantly finding out. They have a drive, but constantly that drive being affected or changed in some way.
Yeah. Dang, how'd we get on that? Demon Slayer, it's not as bad as Saint Seiya. Like, everybody listening. So my criticisms of Saint Seiya are an indictment of the quality of that series. Okay, like the Saint Seiya. When I mean to Saint Seiya, it's born from just like at this point, I'm doing it for the meme. It's just kind of a running joke that I have to suffer through Saint Seiya until it's done at this point.
Yeah.
For Demon Slayer, my criticisms of that are a lot more genuine and a lot more in recognition of potential that I think is not being fulfilled.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so listener, while you're waiting for this mangaka to come out with his next book that will be better than Demon Slayer, don't read Demon Slayer and just go read Vagabond, Berserk, or Vinland Saga.
Yeah. Or, do read Demon Slayer. I do think that it is a series worth supporting. And if it's your thing, worth worth experiencing. Experiencing is the word I was looking for. I was going to say worth consuming, but that's a cynical word for what I'm talking about here. Yeah, no, Demon Slayer, if that is like up your alley, if you do like a shonen series that has a, you know, just a little bit more of that emotional depth, because
Yeah.
it is an emotionally deep and complicated series. I will
Oh yeah.
grant that to Demon Slayer. It's
Yeah.
just bogged down with characters like Zenitsu and
With
Inosuke
with
telling the same
stereotypical
joke
shonen
over and
stuff.
over again.
Yeah.
Telling the same joke and then looking at you like, you get it?
Yeah.
You get it? I'm the cowardly horny one.
Yeah. And there never being any development or growth with them.
Yeah. But yeah, like all of the depth lies specifically in Tanjiro and Nezuko, and not like, and their dynamic not just with each other but with the demons they fight.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is still worth reading. I would say Saint Seiya in the modern day, with how much shonen manga has progressed and changed, and even how much better Saint Seiya's contemporaries are. Saint Seiya is probably not a manga worth revisiting, like, given the current landscape of content you could be experiencing. Demon Slayer still has value. It is still something worth reading, in my opinion.
It's worth reading, but there's better stuff.
Yeah, it's worth. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, you always got to take it with it is worth reading, but yes, there are better ways to spend your time, like reading Dragon Ball or reading Claymore or Tokyo Ghoul.
Yeah.
Or Naruto. Or heck, One Piece.
Yeah.
I could have been 600 chapters into One Piece by now, you know that, Brandon. Instead, I'm 30 chapters into 20 series, with One Piece being only one of them. Okay, anyway. Dr. Stone, chapters 26 to 30. The series continues to ramp up the science, introducing sulfuric acid to the list of ingredients needed to complete the panacea Senku has been working toward for over 15 chapters at this point. It also ramps up the stakes, introducing a new antagonist in the form of Magma, a warrior who is looking to win his place as the village chief. Gen also went back to Tsukasa to report that Senku is dead, the result of which is yet to be seen. With multiple moving parts in play, Dr. Stone is looking to be one of the more mentally engaging titles amongst the younger entries in this list. Yeah, Dr. Stone has gotten to a point now where, on top of the scientific progress being what drives interest in the series, character interactions and multiple plot points converging and diverging are serving as like the main thrust as well. Like, enough characters have been introduced that Dr. Stone can start moving parts more.
Mm-hmm.
Almost as if the series itself is functioning like one of the machines that Senku builds. But yeah, like, I'm all caught up on the anime. I know what the result of a lot of this stuff is going to be in the manga, like, narratively speaking. It's just interesting to see it play out.
Yeah.
Again, like, it's Dr. Stone is another one of those ones where I think I've talked about this before. The Dr. Stone anime came to me at a point in my life where I feel like I really needed it.
Yeah.
So the manga has been a joy to revisit all those older parts of the series and see it play out again, but in its original format. And by original format, I mean the digital version of the manga, not the physical.
Right.
Because technically, its original format would have been physical copies of the manga, but I don't want to take up that much space on my shelf. Could you imagine if I had added the stipulation that I needed to buy physical copies of all 20 of these series to read? Oh my gosh, I wouldn't have space in my house, much less on my shelf.
Hold on, you don't get bogged down in this, but now I'm gonna look at this. Like, as you're going on, I'm gonna calculate the cost of what this is. Just the general thing of like $10 per volume. I know there are some that are going to be like $12.99. There's some that are out of print, all that sort of stuff. I'm just going to do $10. But yeah, I'll figure that out.
Yeah, if you can figure out how many total volumes there are of each series so far, and then calculate an average cost, yeah, that'd be crazy. Because I can tell you right now, even with the fact that I think I've had the Shonen Jump app for close to a year now, I'm probably still only paid a fraction of that cost just through the subscription.
Yeah.
Like, this is the way I talk about this app makes it sound like I'm paid to do it, but I genuinely think this is a great deal, especially if you
it's like a
shows
great value. Isn't it $2.99 a month right now?
I can never remember. It's either $2.99 or $3.99 a month.
Well, even if it's $3.99, I remember whenever I first got Shonen, like 3 years ago, maybe. I don't have it anymore, but it was $1.99.
Yeah.
Which, as I was like starting to get out of it, they were bumping it to $2.99. That wasn't the reason I got out of it. I just wasn't reading. Was the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they could have it at like $5.99. Like it's still completely worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, don't do this, Shonen. Obviously, Shonen listens to this.
Yeah.
They could have it at $9.99, and it'd still be like way worth it.
Yeah. Now you're kind of reaching into Marvel Unlimited territory.
Yeah. But at least with this has more, in my opinion, more value than Marvel Unlimited, because Marvel Unlimited, as well as DC and their thing, it's like you keep up to date 6 months back.
Yeah, that's true. And Shonen Jump is keeping their stuff up to date, I think, to the week.
Yeah. As of the week, yeah.
So yeah, if there's anyone out there who wants to read just a metric ass load of shonen manga and is okay with the fact that all of it's published by Jump, the Shonen Jump app is pretty good.
Because there's going to be at least like 2 or 3 series that you'll want to read, and like,
oh yeah,
even if it takes you like a few months to read them, it's completely worth it when you think about like the amount it would cost to buy all the volumes of those 2 or 3 series you wanted to read.
Yeah, you could read Dan Da Dan.
Yeah.
Which is, that's the new big hype one that's got an anime adaptation right now. I'm gonna wait for the hype to die down around that show before I watch it, because right now it's one of those ones where there's so much hype around it that it feels artificial. So I like, and that's just kind of forming an unconscious bias in my mind against the series. So I'm going to wait until hype dies down and I can approach the series, with a clearer perspective. Because I know if I try to watch the Dan Da Dan anime right now, I'm not going to give it a fair chance.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to really watch any of these when they do become anime, or if they are already. But like, I remember when I was getting out of the Shonen app, like I still really wanted to read Sakamoto Days and Spy Family. But what I'm probably going to do, I'm probably just going to wait till both of those are finished, and then I'll just read them then.
Binge them. Yeah. Every time I go on the app, I kind of regret not making Undead Unluck one of my 20. I mean, Mashal's been fun, but Undead Unluck was the other one that could have replaced JoJo. But yeah, so hey, who knows? Maybe I'll extend the study. Like, if certain series end and I'm like, that was good, but I want to replace it with something instead of increasing the pace on an existing thing, I'll start adding things like Undead Unluck, Dan Da Dan, Spy Family, things like that.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who we'll see if I want to make this thing go on indefinitely instead of having a point where it could end.
Yeah.
Because we all know how it's going to end. One Piece is going to be the only series left. That's how it ends.
Yeah.
Which, that's not a bad place to be in. Especially considering the fact that I've got Saint Seiya on the list right now. But
Yeah.
Anyway, Jujutsu Kaisen, chapters 22 to 26. If there's anyone confused about why Jujutsu Kaisen's chapters are off, listen to an earlier version of the Manga Study. I don't want to explain it.
Yeah.
All right. The series managed to pull me back in by telling a compelling story around Yuji and his desire to befriend Junpei, technically one of the antagonists of the arc. By reaching out to him on a genuine level and giving him his first real taste of human connection, Yuji is showing a greater depth of character than he was able to in earlier arcs of the series. The art remains decent and the action is still top-notch. A good stretch of chapters overall.
Nice.
Yeah, it's not a lot to report on JJK this time around, other than the fact that one of the antagonists is a young boy named Junpei, who's about Yuji's age. And Junpei is one of those. He's a severely bullied nerd. He really just dislikes people in general as a result of this. He's one of those typical like Japanese anime characters who's like, everybody in the world can just go die because everybody's mean to me, sort of characters. But Yuji treats Junpei normally. He treats him with respect and just genuinely wants to befriend him. And so it really, it's a really interesting dynamic to see, like, you know, this kid, this average shonen protagonist kid, suddenly just like kind of try to adopt this shy nerd. And you know, and there's some, you know, sad and tragic moments, like Junpei's mother is killed by a cursed spirit over this stretch of chapters. Junpei is also being very heavily monitored and manipulated by a powerful cursed spirit, whose name I forget, but he the main villain for this arc is a cursed spirit who resembles a human, and he has the ability to physically reshape people in extremely horrifying ways. Like, he is a grotesquely frightening character just because of his power. And the way he does this is by altering the shape of the soul. Because the soul, by Jujutsu Kaisen's logic, is physically reflected in the form of the body. So if the shape of the soul is altered, so too is the shape of the body. And this cursed spirit, like I said, he manipulates human bodies in very grotesque ways, and alters them beyond recognition, to the extent that it's just best to kill anyone he messes with, because there's no way to get them back to the way they were. And like, if they're still alive when he's done with them, they're just stuck suffering in this horribly deformed, mutilated body. It's a fantastic implementation of body horror in a shonen manga, the likes of which you don't see. Like shonen manga dabbles with horror a lot. Like, there's a lot of tentacles, because that's just kind of a thing Japan does. And there's like a lot of grotesque monsters in shonen manga, but like, you don't see it in such an uncomfortable way as it has been done in Jujutsu Kaisen.
Right.
And I think that that's really impressive, and it's really cool that JJK is able to get away with it. So that's probably one of the highlights of this stretch of chapters, and this arc in particular, is that it is really effectively scary body horror. And I'm looking forward to seeing the good guys punch the bad guys in the face. Because I mean, the Nanami, he's one of the like kind of mentor teacher-ish characters in the series. He's been beaten on that cursed spirit. His power's nuts. Because his power is that, like, if he hits an enemy at exactly the right angle with whatever his sheathed blade weapon thing is. He creates weak points and like cuts and cracks into whatever he's hitting. It's I don't remember the exact explanation. It seems extremely precise. But yeah, the thing is, Jujutsu Kaisen has this sort of rule in the lore. I think it's called like disclosure or something like that. I'm not sure. But if you tell your opponent the details of how your powers work, sure, you lose the advantage of surprise, but your power is boosted against them.
Mm.
So it's a risk reward thing where it's like you're giving the opponent the opportunity to prepare and counter your ability, but if they can't, you've got nearly a one-hit kill.
Mm.
It's an interesting system. At least I think that's the way it works. It hasn't been fully explained yet. I've seen clips from the anime though where they go over that. So it gives an in-universe justification for characters constantly telling each other how their powers work.
Yeah.
Because in so many anime, it's like, this is how my power works. It does this and it feeds on this type of energy, and I can only use it this many times per day. And it's like, why are you telling me this? But no, in Jujutsu Kaisen, it's like, this literally gives me a boost to tell you this.
Yeah, yeah.
So like, good luck, scrub. So yeah. All right. Next. Almost finished. Chainsaw Man, chapters 26 to 30. The conclusion to the initial confrontation with Katana Man introduced Kobeni's far superior interpretation of the unconscious badass trope, really schooling Demon Slayer on that one, and started delving deeper into the true threat the Special Division is facing. With Denji and Power beginning their training arc with this story's Master Roshi equivalent, the series continues to astound with uniquely framed and illustrated action scenes that communicate the movement clearly. The series can have you reading chapters in minutes with its insane pace, which is definitely a good thing. Chainsaw Man is really establishing itself as a binge read, better in large chunks than small doses.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I read it. I binged all of part 1 back when that had finished.
Yeah, like Chainsaw Man is definitely the sort of series where it's like, sure, you want to read it every week, but it's better to sit and wait and let it build.
Oh yeah,
because then like you get bigger, because like the chapters go so fast. They're still they're still 20-page chapters, but they go so much faster than everything else.
Yeah, I was talking to someone recently. They aren't big manga person. They're like into comics, but they really the only manga they read was Chainsaw Man. They read like all of part 1 sort of thing. And I told them, I was like, well, if you like Chainsaw Man, I do recommend Tokyo Ghoul.
That is a good recommendation.
Just because like Chainsaw Man, humor wise, like Tokyo Ghoul doesn't have humor like Chainsaw Man. Tokyo Ghoul doesn't really have too much humor in it.
Yeah.
But regarding like in like going in depth, especially as Chainsaw Man goes along, and you've seen like some of it, going in depth, like as well as like kind of very much studying characters, like Chainsaw Man, like Tokyo equal to Chainsaw Man in that, if not more. I would say it's more than Chainsaw Man in that. But yeah, for those that like Chainsaw Man, yes, Tokyo Ghoul doesn't have that humor, but I think it's a good jump to point going from Chainsaw Man to Tokyo Ghoul.
Yeah, I would say Tokyo Ghoul is a slightly more this is going to sound like an insult, but I promise for Chainsaw Man fans it isn't. Tokyo Ghoul is a slightly more mature take on a lot of what Chainsaw Man is doing.
Yeah. I'd say that's a good way to put it.
And again, it's not bad for Chainsaw Man to be immature. That's a huge part of its identity, actually, is its sophomoric jocularity, to use a couple of big words there. But yeah, like Chainsaw Man, you know, being a manga about a guy who wants to fondle some boobs is you know, again, that's a part of its identity, and that wraps around to its, you know, themes of, you know, goals and ideals and like the worthiness of those things. What makes a worthy goal?
Yeah.
I don't think it was on the podcast. I was talking to Clay about this. So a lot of Chainsaw Man's themes are represented through the duality of Denji and Aki, I've noticed in these first 30 chapters. Because you've got Denji, who at this point in his life has everything he could ever want, which is just a roof over his head, a bed to sleep in, and as much food as he needs. Like he's got things he wants. He has, you know, he wants to be intimate with a girl because that's not something he's ever had before, and that's really his only goal at the moment.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, he's pretty much satisfied. You know, everything he's going for right now is kind of extra.
Right.
But then you've got Aki, who's always had those things. Aki's always had a home, always had a bed, always had food. But his family was taken from him by a devil, so he's driven by revenge. Aki is driven to avenge what he's lost, while Denji is driven to hold on to what he's gained.
Yeah.
And that contrast in those two characters is a huge part of why they conflict with each other so much. Because Denji is someone who never had and suddenly now has. Aki is someone who had and then lost. So the two of them like can't really understand each other. To Denji, Aki's anger and his desire for vengeance is a waste of time. It's a waste of his life. To Aki, Denji's sole motivation being that, like, hey, it might be nice to touch some boobs someday, is childish and worthless and not. It's not a worthy goal. And it's for me, it's really fun to look at those parallels, because then you also look at the way it impacts how they process loss. Aki, after Himeno dies, Aki is crying in his hospital bed. At her death, his best friend died to save him, and she almost failed anyway. And he sacrificed literal years of his life to protect her, and it meant nothing because she died anyway. And you have this moment where Denji hears Aki crying from outside of the hospital room and realizes that he doesn't feel that strongly about anyone. Denji thinks about it and realizes he literally doesn't care enough about anyone he's met in his life so far to cry for their death. It's it's so fascinating. It's like
as it goes along, it just with every character, like it I can't say too much, but like every character just has some drive or goal that, like, at first may just seem like just a standard thing about them or standard character trait about them, but like it really gets broken down without beating you over the head of like having to say it to you.
And that's great too, because so often in shonen manga, when a character has a goal, they introduce themselves with that goal. I'm going to be king of the pirates. I'm going to be the Hokage. Like, that's how Luffy and Naruto introduced themselves to new people. But in Chainsaw Man, Denji obviously doesn't introduce himself with like, hey, I'm Denji and I want to touch boobs.
Yeah.
That's how I introduce myself to people. That's probably why I have such difficulty meeting women. But yeah, so it's so fascinating, and I wish I had conclusions to draw from it, but obviously I don't, because I'm still so early in the series.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to seeing specifically how Denji and Aki continue to parallel each other as characters as the series goes on.
The parallels with them, as well as like, man, like really every character, as well as because I mean, you see it somewhat early on, but the dynamic between Denji, Aki, and Power, I think as it goes on, just is like so great.
Yeah,
like I love all their dynamic, and even like the everyone has like a role to play in the series, and they have some sort of development, or you realize something about them that you really didn't realize early on. But even like the smaller characters, like what was it? It was Kamino. What was her name?
Himeno.
No, wrong one. The
Kobeni, I think is who.
Kobeni. Yeah, Kobeni. Even Kobeni, like by the end of the series, she's not in it a lot. But by the end of the series, I'm like, man, like this essentially side character is like, yeah. I like her because she's also a change of pace in this. I'm not going to spoil anything, but as it goes along, I think you've already seen at this point, like she's just trying to get money for her family. This isn't like this isn't like oh, I'll die for this cause. It's like, no, this is a job for me.
Yeah, like this is a paycheck. She's just trying to help her family, and so it's great. It's great. But yeah, like as far as the first season of the anime went, just to give you context for like what I've seen ahead of time, the first season of the anime pretty much ends with Denji and Aki kicking Katana Man in the groin repeatedly.
Oh, I'm trying to remember what chapter that's at.
It's probably still a decent few chapters ahead of me. I feel like I'm getting close to that though. But yeah, that's how season 1 ends for the anime. So
this isn't really a spoiler. Is there there's like a bomb-headed demon? Does that person ever pop up?
I've not seen it to my memory.
Okay, it's not really a spoiler, but okay. So in that case, from what I remember, because that's around like chapter 50-ish. So the anime must end in like the late 30s or early 40s, I'm guessing.
That's what I'm thinking. Like the devils that I've seen, like basically short cameos of so far, are like the Spider Devil, the Shark Devil, and the Angel Devil.
I gotcha.
And they haven't really done much of anything real yet, to my memory.
Yeah. As it goes on, I actually like the Shark Devil a good bit.
Yeah, he seems like an interesting character. Like he seems like he's going to be one of those ones who gets a lot to do later. But and I like the Spider Devil for reasons that anyone who knows me too well can guess. Anyway, like so something that I kind of noticed about the dynamic between Aki, Denji, and Power, even by the end of season 1, is Aki is basically stuck with a couple of horrible little shit people as new younger siblings.
Yeah.
Because that's what Denji and Power are.
Oh,
They're horrible little shit people. And I love them. But but like in a way, like the dynamic is very much like Aki's kind of stuck playing older brother to these two devils.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting like 3-person dynamic. But yeah, like Power's fun just because she's terrible. She's so horrible.
Yeah.
She's just a bad person and like completely unapologetic about it.
Yeah. There's multiple scenes throughout the manga, but there's one scene with a car. I won't get you'll get to it like within the next 20 chapters or so.
Yeah.
Like she is like you said, such a like little shit person, but the scene with the car I absolutely love.
Well, now I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully I'll remember enough about this conversation.
It's a very minor thing, but you'll hold on to it in your head.
Okay.
Like that scene. I'm not saying this conversation, but that scene.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I'm the reason I'm hoping I hold on to this conversation is so that I can tell you when I've seen the car scene you were talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah. Next up, Mashal, Muscles and Magic, chapters 26 to 30. Lighter on comedy and heavier on action, this stretch of Mashal demonstrates the artist's affinity for over-the-top and explosive action set pieces where every panel sells the otherworldly impact of each strike as it happens. With so much happening on the action front, these chapters breeze by quickly, really demonstrating Mashal's potential to be more than a particularly effective one-note comedy. Because, yeah, up to this point, Mashal has been just kind of the same joke over and over of, you can't beat my magic. And then he's like, I'm just a big, beefy, strong guy, so yes, I can. Now I'm going to go eat cream puffs. Because that's like Mash's fun little quirk, is that he likes cream puffs a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the series has mostly been a gag manga up to this point, but now it's in an arc where there are actual antagonists and actual fights between Mashal and his friends and the bad guys. And it's gotten to a point now where fights are taking longer than like one decisive strike to end, because they were largely ending in like one proper hit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not like One Punch Man style where Saitama shows up and just punches the bad guy and it's over. More like whichever two characters are fighting trade attempts but never land anything until someone gets that one blow.
Right.
But in these chapters, it's more of an actual like exchange of attacks, and hits are landing but not deciding the fight in one go.
Okay.
So yeah, it's the action choreography particularly in fights involving MASH are great. Mashal does a lot more with a character who uses arrows as their main gimmick than I think Demon Slayer did. It is a little more straightforward with the way it presents the arrows, but it does more creative things with them, I think. It's hard to explain what I mean. Now I like that arrow devil, or not devil, demon. Sorry, important distinction. Devils are for Chainsaw Man, demons are for Demon Slayer. I like that arrow demon from Demon Slayer for the brief period he appears. Yeah, like there's a guy who in Mashal who uses arrows as like his main attack gimmick. And I think he does a lot with it in a lot of really interesting ways. Like placing an up arrow on himself to, I think, increase his magical power. And a down arrow on Mash to like weigh him down, I think was what it was doing. He just didn't anticipate that because Mash never skips leg day, he's just so beefed beyond belief that he like an increase in gravity doesn't affect him.
Yeah.
Beef Beyond Belief is my cookbook. It's coming out this Christmas. Dude, I would totally get a cookbook called Beef Beyond Belief. Do you have any idea how much I love beef? It's my favorite meat. Beef Beyond Belief. That I'm gonna Google that when we're done to see if that's actually already a cookbook. And if it's not a cookbook, it's something that I shouldn't have Googled.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, last series. Kaiju number 8, chapters 26 to 30. The series is starting to really get a head of steam going, channeling the spirit behind some of the best hype moments of Attack on Titan into a less grim and gritty package. The series does its best to display for the audience why a world that is constantly under kaiju threat hasn't been obliterated already, and it really delivers. This stretch of chapters shows off the ridiculously capable soldiers responsible for protecting citizens from the kaiju as they respond to an attack on their own home base. These monster slayers are allowed to cut loose and show off exactly why they're humanity's frontline defense force in some of the most intense military versus monster battles I've seen since the heyday of AOT. While I am missing seeing Kafka in his kaiju form personally, I won't deny that characters like Shinomiya, Vice Captain Hoshino, and Captain Ashiro have an incredible gravity to them when placed in battle, showing off their capabilities as combatants to match their likable personalities that have already been conveyed outside of crisis situations. All in all, a really strong showing this time around. Yeah, Kaiju number 8, I'm realizing, is just what if Attack on Titan smiled sometimes?
That sounds good.
Yeah. And by sometimes, I mean most of the time, because Kaiju number 8 is a great deal more optimistic than Attack on Titan.
Right.
But yeah, it even has kind of like that similar gimmick of like the main hero transforms into the monsters he fights, sort of thing. Because he turns into a kaiju, not a giant kaiju. He's a human-sized kaiju, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's like, I don't know, 7 feet tall in his kaiju form, I guess. So, a little shorter than you. But
yeah.
No, I'm messing with you. I'm joking.
I could take him.
Yeah, you got big laser propelled arms.
Oh, don't need them.
These hands are rated E for everyone.
Yeah. I follow the Saitama way of preparing.
100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups, 100 crunches. Isn't that just sit-ups? I don't know.
10-kilometer
100 squats and a 10-kilometer run every single day.
Yeah.
You exercise until your hair falls out.
Yes.
For 3 years. At least. I have to assume he maintains that routine, which honestly, given his power, he probably does it in like a couple seconds.
Yeah. It's probably nothing at this point.
He's been shown to be extremely fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kaiju number 8 is really, really looking interesting. And I'm really happy that the stretch of chapters that I just read really dug into the squad dynamics of the Kaiju Slayers in the series. And like really got into like their procedures. Well, not like really into their procedures. Like it didn't get into the details of it, but like it got into how they communicate and how they operate on the battlefield a lot more.
Yeah.
In a very show don't tell sort of way. Like I said, like it doesn't get into details. It just kind of shows you how they work. So it was a lot of fun to read these chapters and see like, oh, hey, this feels like I'm understanding why, a world that is infested with kaiju could exist if these guys are the ones protecting people.
Yeah.
Because, it does kind of leave you with the question, why aren't they essentially living in Attack on Titan if kaijus are as prevalent a problem as they are presented? And it's because these kaiju slayers are actually really good at their jobs.
Yeah.
So yeah, overall, this was a pretty fun milestone. I This is gonna sound a little weird given how much I did just talk today. I feel like there was a little less to discuss this time than there have been in the past. 26 to 30 just generally seems to be a dry stretch of chapters for a lot of series, because I feel like this is the point where they've all kind of figured out what they are and they're just kind of hitting their stride for the first time,
Yeah.
for
That
better or
makes
for
sense.
worse. Oh, dude. Next milestone. Saint Seiya is that could be a whole episode by itself.
Yeah.
I have so much to no. You know what? I don't have a lot to squeal about, but but what I do have to squeal about makes me so frustrated that I could just squeal about it forever. Freaking cheer to you, man. Okay, I'll spoil one thing because there's exactly one really cool premise in the next stretch of 5 chapters for Saint Seiya.
Okay.
So you know how all the armor cloths that they wear are inspired by different constellations,
Right.
and the ones that they're fighting right now are specifically the like Greek zodiac. So the Libra cloth is very interesting, and I'm happy that this is the fun, unique cloth because that's my birth sign. I was born in late September.
Nice.
Yeah, I was like just in time for Libra to be my star sign. I don't like, for anybody out there wondering, I don't put any stock in like astrology or star signs or
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
like that. It's just a fun little piece of information generally.
Yeah.
My my Chinese zodiac animal, the rat.
Yeah. I think mine's the. I remember when I was a kid, I was always like, "Dang it, I wanted the dragon." I think everyone wanted the dragon when they were a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because dragon's, the coolest. But you know what?
Yeah. Rock.
The rat was the smartest. That's why he's first.
Sure.
Well, did you ever
But
hear
deep
the?
down, you wanted the dragon before you read into like all what each one meant. When it was
Yeah,
simply like, "Hey, here is what each year is,"
yeah.
and you didn't get the dragon, you're like, "Dang it, I wanted the dragon." But then you find out yours is pretty good. But yeah,
Yeah, well, I'm gonna be honest. I wasn't like when I was young enough to learn what the Chinese zodiac was and what my sign was. I wasn't as into dragons as I am now, so I don't think I thought twice about it.
uh,
But yeah, no, like dragons are, the coolest thing that human beings have ever come up with.
well, I mean, compare it like not going into what each of those animals mean. If you
Yeah.
just pull up the Chinese year animals, it's
Oh
like,
yeah, no,
what the
like
crap? This is so unbalanced.
yeah, no, no, that's what I'm saying. Is like at the time that I learned like what the animals were and what their order was, I didn't care enough
Yeah.
about dragons to be disappointed that I was the rat.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like, have you ever heard like the story of why each of those animals are placed where they are on the zodiac chart?
Mm-mm.
So like it's this old myth where like the Jade Emperor, who's like the god of China or whatever, um it like invites all of the animals in existence to his palace for like a big feast or whatever, and the first
Mm.
12 who appear will receive places of honor. So the there's a moat around his palace and no bridge, so the animals have to swim or fly across, and the rat and a larger animal, I think it's the ox. Is the ox after the rat on the
Yeah, because I'm ox.
Okay, yeah. So the rat and the ox are the first two at the moat, and the rat says, "If you let me ride on your back, because I can't swim, if you let me ride on your back, you'll get to cross the finish line first, and you'll have like the highest place of honor." So the ox
Mhm.
agrees to this, and when they're close enough to the shore that the rat can jump, the rat jumps and crosses the finish line first, having outsmarted the ox with a lie. And so the ox gets second because he believed the rat's word.
Uh,
And that's why the rat is first on the chart and ox is the second.
Oh, okay. Well, Ox is much more honorable. Rat is
Yeah.
shame on Rat.
Hey, man, I've said before, I don't think I've ever said it on the podcast, but the worst part about being the smartest guy in the room is that you're smart enough to understand what a low bar that is to clear.
That's true.
You probably feel that too. So, anyway, no. What I was getting into with the Libra cloth, though, I'm happy that this is like the most unique cloth that's introduced. It doesn't turn into armor.
Mm.
Instead, it turns into 6 different configurations of dual weapons.
Okay.
Depending on the needs of the wielder, and that's the only thing from chapters 31 to 35, right? Yeah, 31 to 35 that I will be spoiling ahead of time.
I gotcha.
I will get into the frustrating way in which it's used next time. Because it is used to do something stupid and annoying.